Good evening. My name is Amber Sellers, and I'm from Kansas. We traveled 3 hours to be here, and
Oh, bless you.
I
Thank you.
appreciate the opportunity to be here. And I want to say that you are probably one of the most natural feeling candidates that I have met, and that speaks volumes. And I hope that this is not the last time we see you, and that we see you in a more presidential position at the.
What a nice thing to say. Thank you.
I am a recent public administration graduate, and my focus was health equity and housing.
Yep.
And I want to know, as someone who is on the grassroots, who experiences housing inequality, who is rent burdened, who does not work a job that will allow them the opportunity to own a
Yep.
home. And I know that the bill that you recently
I'm
introduced.
going to talk about it.
Yes, please talk about it, because I know maybe there's probably a lot of people here who don't know about it. But as someone who's on the ground, what can I do to keep pushing that message in my community about
Fabulous.
inclusivity and housing affordability for everyone?
Okay, fabulous. How many people in here worry about the rising cost of housing? Yeah, a lot of hands, right? So here's the deal. New construction in America has moved to the high end. So if you're rich, there's a lot of housing opportunities. But if you're middle class, working poor, or poor, what's basically happened is there hasn't been much new housing coming in. The government has backed out from what it was doing. And the consequence is housing is deteriorating, and at the same time, the price is going up. So what can we do about it? I'll tell you exactly what we can do about it. We can build 3.2 million new housing units across this country. Urban, rural, we can do this. What would be the consequence of doing that? First is we'd produce about 1.5 million jobs, local jobs, good jobs, that's a good part. Second, we would bring down, according to Moody's, the price of rents, instead of they're continuing to go up, by about 10%. That's their estimate. And think about it. You bring 3.2 million new housing units online. It affects prices overall, not just the new units you bring in, because it affects the market. But that's not all we need to do. The number one way that families, working families, middle-class families build wealth is to buy a home. And that's how it's worked generation after generation for white families, but not for African American and Latino families. Not just because of gravity, not just because that's how it worked out. It was official government policy to redline African American neighborhoods and prevent them from participating in housing wealth until the mid-1960s. Think about that. That was the policy of our government. And many of those redline neighborhoods have never recovered. So that's how we end up with African American home ownership rates back where they were when housing discrimination was legal. So what does this housing bill propose to do? 3.2 million new units. But it also says we need to take a first step toward rectifying the wrongs of the past and help people in formerly redlined areas be able to buy homes. I'll tell you one more part about this bill. It also requires that we put the money in to fully fund our obligations for housing on our native reservations, something that we have not done as a country. But here's the part about money talks. So I go talk to experts in Washington. I put this bill together. I talk about this will be senior housing. This will be housing for people with disabilities. This has so many places, housing in rural areas where it's falling apart. Lots of good stuff that comes out of this. Remember, 3.2 million new housing units, plus all the spillover good effects from this and jobs. And who would help pay for this? The 10,000 richest families in America. And do you know what people in Washington say to me? You can never do that. Because 10,000 rich families have so much more power in Washington than millions of American families who are struggling to pay. So what I say to them is you just wait till 2020.